Hi everybody, these are the poems that go with this week's chapters we'll be reading in Hate That Cat. So this is Miss Stretchberry's figurative language and some of the things she talks about to Jack while he's writing his journal. So here we go. All right, so first of all, we're just going to review some of the things we've already learned about poetry. Poetry is written in lines and it has and often follows a rhythm, such as roses are red and violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. So those are some of the things, that rhythm that we've known that for a while. Characteristics of poetry. A poem, the author usually tells their thoughts and feelings. Many poems rhyme, but not all. Poems are written in lines and stanzas. They often include figurative language, such as alliteration, metaphor, or imagery. The author's purpose of the poem is usually to entertain and maybe convey some feelings. But usually it's just to entertain with the words. And then there's different types of poetry. We've got sonnets, and we've got, let me just change this color so you can see better. We've got sonnets, and we've got ballads, and haikus, and limericks, acrostic poems, that's when we tried, and free verse. That's what Jack writes in. And then we have haikus, which talk about syllables. So this is an example of a haiku. The Old Pond by Matsudo Basho. An old silent pond, the frog jumps into the pond, splash, silence again. And it's just counting of syllables. All right, and then here, this is parts of a poem, and we talked a little bit about this already. Parts of a poem, refrain, that means that it's repeated. So if it's a repeated verse, that means it's a refrain. And then we have the stanzas, and we know that poems are broken up into stanzas like this. And then each one is a line. So the line is a single row of words in a poem. And then the stanza we just circled is like the paragraph of the poem. The stanza is a group of lines in a poem that are separated from each other by a space. And so it's like the poem's paragraphs. And then a refrain is a phrase or line or stanza that is repeated throughout the poem. So you just keep on hearing it over and over. All right, so let me see. Let me go on. All right, so alliteration, we talked about this in class, but alliteration is the repetition of first consonant sounds in several words. So here's an example. The shark swam swiftly. Molly made marvelous muffins. So in this one, we're hearing the S sound, and that's the alliteration. And here we're hearing the M sound. That's the alliteration right there. Okay. So that's one of the figurative language. And then the other one we talked about in our class, I think we were doing our Chris Van Allsburg story, Onomatopoeia. Names an action by the sound. So crash, whoosh, ping, beep, click, zap. So knock, knock, all of those words that are a sound, that's onomatopoeia. And then here's what, if you already read the story, we've got consonants and assonance. And consonance is the repeating of a consonant sound within words in a sentence and phrase. And again, it doesn't really matter if you remember this, but just if you want to, these are words that I think I didn't learn until I was in high school. So you see pitter, patter, drip, drop, splish, splash. Those sounds like the P, the double T's, and the R's, you can, they're over and over in those two lines, those two words. And then drip and drop, we just changed the vowel sound. And splish, splash, just the vowel sound. So that's an example of consonance. Assonance is the repeating vowel sound within a word in a sentence or a phrase. So here it's rain, rain, go away, come again another day. So we have the A-I-A-Y sound that's repeated. So again, it's not important, but I just wanted you to know, because I know some of you guys are into this. This way you know what those terms are called. And it's another form of figurative language. And I'm going to leave this so you guys can go back and read it if you want. So here's some more examples of assonance. Is up on an island hard to reach. In the east, beast sits upon a beach. So we have that each sound. See right there? Upon the west beach sits the west beast, the EA sound. Each beast thinks that best beast. So that's, again, the same EA sound in all those words. And then the consonants is the consonants and the non-vowel words. So consonants is the repetition of consonant in a nearby word. So whoosh woods these are I think I know. His house is in the village though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods will up with snow. So like whoosh woods, this this W sounds right there, the consonants, these think, his house. So those consonant sounds that you hear. Again, it's not that important, but you know, if somebody ever mentions it, you'll know because you're so smart. All right. And then this is the one of the poems that she again goes back to, remember from the first book, but it's so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rain water beside the white chickens. And if you watched the movie last time, remember I told you that these kind of look like mini wheelbarrows right here. These look like mini wheelbarrows, and this is where the wheel would go right there. So it's also looks like the wheelbarrow that the subject is of this poem. All right, and then here's the one by Edgar Allan Poe. And if you ever know anything about Edgar Allan Poe, he is kind of creepy, but he's really cool. He lived a while ago, and he writes short stories, kind of creepy, scary short stories. But here's, he uses a lot of alliteration. He uses a lot of figurative language, a lot of imagery. So if you ever get into Edgar Allan Poe, I'm warning you now, he's got some creepy writing. So here we go. The Bells by Edgar Allan Poe. Hear the sledges with the bells, silver bells. What a world of merriment their melody foretells, though they tinkle, tinkle, tinkle in the city air and night, while the stars are oversprinkle, all the heavens seem to twinkle in the crystalline delight, keeping time, 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 in a sort of runic rhyme, and the tintinnabulation that so musically wells from the bells, 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 from the jingling to the tinkling of the bells. Hear the mellow wedding bells, golden bells, what the world of happiness their harmony foretells, though the balmy air of night, how they ring out their delight from the molten golden notes of all in tune, the liquid ditty floats, and the turtle dove that listens while she gloats on the moon. Oh, from the sounding cells and the gush of euphony and voluminously wells, how it swells, how it dwells on the future, how it tells on the rapture that impels, on the swinging and the ringing of the bells, 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 of the bells, 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 to the rhyming, chiming of the bells. So it's got like a rhythm and stuff. Again, it was an older English, you know, it's older words that we don't always use because he was lived a while ago. And also some of these words he kind of puts together. And poetry, what's so cool is you can kind of make up words so it sounds right. So that's Edgar Allan Poe. He's one of my favorite. I like creepy stories, so he's one of my favorites. And then this one is The Naming Cat by Ts Eliot. And he's a really well-known poet as well. And so here we go. The naming of cats is a difficult matter. It is just one of your holiday games. You may think that at first, but I'm as mad as a hatter when I tell you that a cat must have 3 different names. First of all, there is the name of the family uses daily, such as Peter, Augustus, Alonzo, or James, such as Victor or Jonathan, George or Billy Bailey. All of them sensible, everyday names. There are fancier names if you think they sound sweeter. Some for a gentleman, some for dames, such as Plato, Adamus, Electra, or Demeter, but all of them sensible, everyday names. But I tell you, a cat needs a name that's particular, a name that's peculiar and more dignified, else how can he keep up his tail perpendicular? Oh, to spread out his whiskers, or cherish his pride, of the names of the kind I can give you a quorum, such as Monkstrap or Quaquax or Coricopat, such as Blombarina or Elsa Jelly Lorum, names that have never belonged to more than one cat. But above that, beyond, there's still one name left over. That is the name that you'll never will guess, the name that no human research can discover, but the cat himself knows. He will never confess. When you notice a cat in a profound meditation, the reason I tell you is always the same. His mind is engaged in a rapid contemplation of the thought of his name. It's infallible, infinitesimal, deep and inscrutable, singular name. So apparently cats have the name you give them in the day. The family gives them the name that somebody might call them something grand, and then a name that they call themselves that we will never figure out. I think that's kind of cool that cats have picked their own names. And then here's another poem that's in this section too, called The Eagle. And in the book, Jack really likes the first two lines that describe the eagle's claws. So here we go. The eagle. He clasps the crag with crooked hands, close to the sun in lonely lands, ringed with the azure world. He stands, the wrinkled sea beneath his crawls. He watches from his mountain walls, and like a thunderbolt he falls. So that's by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and so that was one that Jack really liked, the beginning of it. And then this one is by Christopher Myers. Dean Walter Myers' son. And so it's a book. So I tried to order the book. It's an old book. So if I get it, I'm definitely going to share it with you on one of our meetings. But here we go. Black Cat by Christopher Myers. Black cat, cousin to the concrete, creeping down our city streets. Where do you live? Where will we meet? Sauntering like rainwater down storm drains, between Cadillac tires and the curb, sipping water from fire hydrants, dancing to the banging beats of passing jeeps, ducking under the red circling sirens, cutting through the night. In the wake of a Sunday night family spilling from blue neon churches. Black cat, we want to know where you're home. Where do you go? So all of these are about cats or some sort of animal describing them. But as soon as I get the book for this one, I'll let you know. So these are just the poems that he's going to refer to in this chapter, and then also some of the figurative language vocabulary. So I hope you watch this maybe before you read it, or maybe even after you read it, but I hope this helps you. Miss you guys. Have a great week.